welcome to another episode of Fearless and Free TV. As I promised in the very first episode, I'm going to start bringing some friends on to share what we've been talking about on the sidelines about the Great Awakening and the Ascension and what's really happening on planet Earth right now. So today I have my friend Brandy with us, Brandy Faith Welld. She's an author, and how long have we known each other?
I don't know,
at
least 8 years.
Yeah, a long time. Well, as things are, we just randomly happened upon each other at an event and found out we had friends in common, and we've stayed connected this entire time.
Yeah.
And as it happens, we just got talking, and then, well, this is what we do, right? We talk, and then we kind of see how far we can push the envelope and see what each other knows about things. And very pleasantly surprised that Brandy knows what's going on as well. And she's been teaching me some things I didn't know. And so that's what we're going to be covering here is a couple of things we've been talking about behind the scenes and educating all of you about some things I didn't know that Brandy's been sharing me with. So Brandy, why don't you tell them really quick about the book that you've written?
Yeah, my book's called Heal Your Heart, Free Your Mind. It is a book that's focused on healing all of the ancestral programming and also childhood wounding. Really like this work, it really first started with before I wrote the book and called it that, Heal Your Heart, Free Your Mind. It was really actually a program called Awakening. So I took people through a process of actually awakening, which is kind of along the lines of enlightenment. So it was really targeted towards spiritual people who are looking for enlightenment. So kind of, waking up to their divine sovereignty and their eternal power and how they can then create their reality from that place instead. But then after 2012 happened, I really knew that we hit the tipping point. So at that time period, I was really focused on hitting the tipping point so that enough people were awoken before winter solstice 2012. And I do remember meditating with 1,200 people in India, and people were doing this all around the world at the same time, and just knowing it's done. We hit it. We hit the tipping point. Everything's good. And so then I got guided to take my program to mainstream, because even though people might not want to make awakening, not be interested in enlightenment and all that kind of stuff, they just want to live their life. They do want to stop suffering, and so we needed people to stop suffering and keep thinking that when I get this, then I'll be happy.
Right.
When I get that, then I'll be happy, and continuously chasing something else to be happy and always blaming other people for why they're not happy and being in this conflict all the time, with others and with themselves. And so then that's when I got guided to change the program into this Heal Your Heart, Free Your Mind. And I did it through the process of writing a book, and then the program kind of transformed as I was writing it. I always talk about how the book wrote me. I evolved and my awareness evolved, and then my program evolved as I was writing this book.
Right.
And it created then my other programs called Soul Liberation, which is a mind, body, spirit cleanse, and then my online program called Limitless Living, Upgrade Your Frequency, Elevate Your Life. So that's
okay.
Yeah.
So then what happened after that? What happened? Because we were on this trajectory, right?
Yeah.
We all knew December 21st, 2012, that was going to be the beginning of the ascension we know has been going for several decades, but that was it. That was the new world was going to happen in 2012, and then it didn't.
And then all of a sudden, and it's at that point, you remember, it's we felt it. You could see that there was the awakening of the divine feminine, both in women and men. So everything was becoming more. Women started embracing more of their feminine side. but the power of it, not from a weakness.
Right.
And also you could see more men were waking up to more emotions and feelings. And it became, instead of so mind led to heart led.
Right.
Right. That was how it showed up. And then you start seeing books too, more about the heart. So people who are very focused about teaching about the mind, all of a sudden were, you know, writing books about the power of the heart. And so we're going, yeah, okay, you know, we hit that tipping point, and now we're moving in from a mind-based world to a heart-based world, and where now it's the waking of the divine feminine. So now, which both in women and men, so that it was now like moving to more balance, like the yin yang, the women and men working cohesively together. So not as a patriarchal led society, but and not going then to the opposite side of a matriarchal led society. It was like more of a now we team society.
Right. A masculine feminine balance.
Yeah. And so we were seeing that. I was like, okay, this feels really good. And then all of a sudden something happened. We're like, what the hell? Like the world's gone crazy.
Yeah.
Like, how did we go from heart-based love to this like crazy?
It's like it's like we just forgot or something. Like we just forgot everything we learned. Like, and it was crazy. And I was saying what I've said before. I felt like it was starting to feel like this. Like I kept calling it a whirlpool, but there were times that I would go. I'd be thinking, you know, like the Jetsons, get me off this crazy thing, this treadmill that I could just. It just kept coming back around
circles
again.
And like the
that big awakening that was supposed to happen in 2012 never happened.
It felt like it, right?
Stuck. Like we got stuck in this cycle.
Yeah. And it felt like Groundhog Day, right?
Yeah, like Groundhog Day. Same thing. Oh, here we go again.
Yeah. And so
what happened? What happened? How did that happen?
What happened? So it was really confusing. Yeah. And so really what then started waking up people to what happened was this thing called the Mandela effect. And so all of a sudden people started noticing that things that they have like known all their life, especially around, let's say, movies, like key lines in movies, or key words in songs, or key kind of logos, or things that kind of been just a part of our life, but probably more in that kind of world of being marketed to, I guess, in a way, you know.
There's certain brands that we recognize because we get branded with a brand, right? And then when the brand suddenly doesn't look the way we remember being branded with.
Yeah. And then it was even people, you know, and people's name but they had become like brands, you know, like we knew their names, right? They were stars in maybe different genres, you know, but they were public figures that we knew their name, and all of a sudden things changed. So this started waking people up. They started going, you know, what is going on? And so then they started finding each other, you know, like going, wait, like, has anybody noticed that this is like this? Don't you remember it like this? And everybody started becoming in agreement. Yeah, it used to be like this, you know, like, you know, what's the big line in Field of Dreams?
If you build it, they will come.
Exactly. That's how all of us remembered it. But all of a sudden now in this dimension, it was, if you build it, he will come, you know? And so it was like, what? And so just people then started going down this rabbit hole and looking at these things and sharing this new information that they're seeing. I mean, they're seeing things even changed on VH videos now. And that's when, people started really understanding the CERN. A lot of people discovered the CERN, the CERN, which is an organization in Switzerland that's like right around UN. And they create these accelerators that cross like Switzerland and go like into Italy, and they try to recreate the Bang Theory. And I remember when I was there back in 2002, where they said, they had signs up and said, well, we just discovered the fifth dimension. and stuff. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so, yeah, around this time, I'm thinking it was around 2015. I think they say it's September 23rd, 2015, they did something that put us onto another timeline that is parallel to our timeline, and it's very close to our timeline, so that's why things are slightly different, but they're not exactly the same as like many of us grew up with, you know.
You know, that explains, because I just recorded some videos a couple of days ago about some messages that came in August of 2015. And some of the stuff that I was being told in August of 2015 didn't happen. And most what we were talking about with the FEMA camps in Walmart. That was August of 2015.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's like all the energetically everything changed. That makes sense now.
Yeah, and really like what people started when they started looking into this Mandela effect, they started going down all these rabbit holes to discover all these other ways we've been controlled and manipulated. So then people started learning more about how 9/11 was a planned thing, and then they started becoming aware of more false flags that were created to manipulate us, so that these people, you know, can try to reach their agenda. And the agenda is always been this one world government, new world order and one world government. And so this became this next level awakening. That first awakening we were talking about 2012, it was only the spiritual people who were focused on this, right? It was only the people who were kind of looking for enlightenment and stuff like that.
Yeah, we were really excited about that.
Yeah, exactly. So it was only from a spiritual basis, and most of them did like our spiritual cleansing and healing to get more awakened, right, to hit that tipping point. But this was hitting more mainstream people who weren't looking for awakening, because they knew their movies, they knew their songs, they knew their logos, you know, they knew like these very material, you know, physical things, right? They paid attention to those types of things.
And so those are the ones that are really waking up now. So they're not necessarily having a spiritual awakening, but they're having a that's what's really going on here.
Lie manipulating, and then they're getting awakened to this concept of, you know, timelines and dimensions and things like that, right?
Which was in the spiritual community was just
normal, but this is new thought.
It was all woo woo for everybody else. Now they're starting to grasp that, right? That it's not as crazy and woo as they might have thought it was.
Yeah, especially since the CERN, you know, they had this sign on their website that said, "Oops, we did something we shouldn't have done. We probably shouldn't have done," and it had an image of Alice in Wonderland and like going down the rabbit hole, and all these things that we saw were different. They had it on their website, actually the changes of it on the website.
Really?
Yeah. And so we're like,
I didn't see that. That's interesting.
Yeah. So this I felt like started people now to this other kind of awakening, right? That we are now in. And I feel like that's really what has to happen for the true awakening, is not only do we have to awaken up to our divine sovereignty, right, and our eternal power, but we have to wake up to how we've been being controlled and manipulated, and stop allowing those people to determine our reality like we have been.
Right.
Because, we have felt like we're powerless.
Yeah, and we've been watching that. Like I was saying earlier, we were calling it the 1%.
Yes,
right?
The 1%.
Back in 2010, 2012, the 1% is trying to control everything.
Yeah.
And we felt helpless to do anything about it.
Yeah.
And we thought, if we just hold enough love and hold enough light, that we'll stop. We'll be able to stop that from happening. And it still did.
Yeah, it still.
And perhaps that's because they changed the timeline that we were on. Where
that is.
Our power didn't have the power that it had planned.
Well, it had enough power at that time. So, they were planning this in 2012. What's happening right now? They were planning that in 2012. Yeah. They wrote a document. The Rockefeller Foundation wrote this document called "Scenarios for the Future of Technology and Internal Development." And I don't know if I can get it where you can see that. There you can kind of see it. And they wrote this document in 2010, and basically starting on page 18, it's called Lockstep. Everything we're experiencing right now, they have it written down. Everything about masks and 6 feet away, and this happening in China, and it was a virus. It was a different virus, but it was a virus.
But they had planned a virus.
It was was like, I think it was either Ebola or SARS. It was another one that was happening around that time that they were planning this with, but everything that's happening is in this document. And so they planned to do this, and it said this was written in 2010, that would happen in 2012. And then, of course, you know, a lot of us know, not maybe the whole audience knows, but they show us what they're going to do beforehand. So a lot of what they do is in movies, it's in TV shows.
It's always hidden in plain sight.
Yes.
Everything they have planned is hidden in plain sight. And they have to tell us what the plan is because, right, that Prime Directive is free will choice. So they have to tell us what their plan is. And if we don't balk on it, right, so it's what I call blind compliance. So they tell us what their plan is, and we blindly comply, and they sell it so well.
They sell it so well. Well, we think we're just watching entertainment. That's
but
why.
But they're actually telling us what their plan is.
Doing.
And then the other thing that they do is I call it control in the disguise of security. So they're making us feel all good and wonderful and secure, but it's really control.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
With a pretty bow. But no, but also what they're doing is that we're the many, they're the few. And so we create with our consciousness. And so they are utilizing our consciousness to create these things that they want to create. So they show us the vision
first.
Well, they plant the seed, but they show us the vision. And there's massive amounts of us watching it. So it's like we're visualizing it. We're co-visualizing it together. And we are
unconsciously creating that.
Unconsciously co-creating that.
The vision that they've given us.
That's why they use television. That's why they use it in movies and television, to use our consciousness to create what they want to create, because they're the few and we're the many.
Right.
And they can't do it with their small numbers. So that is also, you know, what they're doing. So along those lines, they showed this happening in the opening ceremony of the 2012 Olympics in London. Yeah, like it had the coronavirus and everything, right?
The nurses and the whole thing out there,
doctors and taking the kids and the mask and all. I mean, it's just really so. They
couldn't go back and change their opening at the last minute.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to co-create it, but it didn't happen because the spiritual people did hit the tipping point.
Yeah.
We hit the tipping point and they couldn't do it. So that's why they had to go back and put us on a different timeline so they could try it again. And then that just is what created this Mandela effect that then people started noticing. You know, they were hoping, again, we were asleep, that they could do things that we wouldn't notice.
So, right? So it's like that movie yesterday that came out last year, and you're like, where he's like, what?
Yeah.
How do you not know what that
is? About the Beatles, right? Don't know these songs.
You know what Coca-Cola is? How do you not know?
Yeah,
things that just disappeared from the timeline that he got put on.
Yeah, and so again, they showed us what they were doing, right, with that movie. And you know, most people just thought, oh, that's a cool, interesting concept, but really, that is what they had done. Yeah. And so now we find ourselves on this different timeline. It's had the effect of them, you know, trying to now hit their agenda again, but you know, during that, people woke up, and then now they trying to run this agenda, and during it, people are waking up.
Well, and that's right. So they made everybody go home and sit at home and be afraid, and in the meantime, everybody was sitting at home and finding out what was really going on. So their whole plan about keeping people afraid and in the dark is backfiring on them. So they're pulling out one thing after another. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try this. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try this. So the riots and the violence and the fires and everything. They are trying everything in the book to keep us afraid and to keep us on this timeline and not waking up. They don't want
Yeah.
a spiritual awakening, and they don't want people knowing what they're really up to.
And they're trying to get us under control before we get to awaken.
Before we get to
and
awake.
we do utilize our divine sovereignty to now co-create the reality that we want to experience for the all. And it also has to do with the timeline we are in, like, let's say, space-wise, right? Universal. Because we are moving into the golden age, right? So we're moving from the Kali Yuga, which was more of the Iron Age and like the world that we've been in, and into this golden
the oil age.
Yeah, yeah. And into this golden age, and then that's when we are like co-creating this place from this divine sovereignty and this love and oneness for all. So these 1% people, they think they're superior to us,
right? They really, the message that I got a while ago from one of the guardians was that they actually see us. So God sees us as little children who are free to play on the playground, right?
Yeah.
They see us as little children that need to be told what to do, and that need somebody to make the decisions for us, because the masses aren't smart enough to make decisions for themselves. So they really see themselves almost like a superior race.
They think they're enlightened.
They're enlightened, and that everybody else needs to be taken care of and have their decisions made for them, because
at the same time they want to keep us stupid,
because
so that they're in control and that we don't utilize our power,
because they want to be able to use us as human resources.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yes,
and enough people are waking up and saying, but wait a minute, I'm supposed to be free on this planet, and what you're doing isn't allowing me to be free. And I think that's really what the statement about the mask is enough people are saying, wait a minute, the masks aren't about a virus at all. The masks are about control. The masks are,
and keep your mouth shut,
and that's
don't come together. The virus is to keep us fearful of coming together.
The last thing they want is us
utilize our power to now co-create the reality that's good for
the golden age
that we want.
So this is what I've been talking about for years. We've been living in a fear-based reality, and we're moving into a love-based reality. So in 2012, we were feeling that love-based reality coming on. We could feel the love coming, and we knew that's what we were creating. And then it was just like halted. And so now that love-based reality is being created again, on a much bigger scale than just the spiritual people, and then just our little bubbles of spiritual community, because we really were in these little lovely, beautiful little bubbles, but they were just bubbles, like little bright lights here and there, and you'd spot the bright lights, and now it's all over the world. People are coming out and saying,
well, now we're coming together with almost like a common goal and a common, let's say, enemy, if you will, where before it was like, you had people around the world that were wanting enlightenment and awakening. However, it wasn't. It was
a little bit exclusive, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it wasn't like a mass. It wasn't like this, where almost the whole world is focused on the same problem and the same like goal of wanting their freedom back. Their constitutional rights back. Their all those types of things. So.
People are really starting to get wind of what's really going on,
and so they're not distracted with anything else, because there's nothing else that they could do. So, like, we couldn't get this amount of focus on one thing, no matter how much we were teaching, about spirituality and things like that. We have now the world's attention and focus on a common goal. So it's the greatest opportunity for the great awakening, for the greatest shift of consciousness, to the great moving into this golden age that could have never happened the way we were doing it. Right.
We thought we were going to lead that. We were the spiritual community, and we were going to lead the way.
Yes.
And so it's really fascinating to see that some of the people that are really awake are people that we never imagined. The ultra religious people, I never ever thought they'd be involved in awakening, and we would actually have to show them how.
And then
they're actually
taking the lead.
And a lot of the spiritual community is still stuck in
buying the
spiritual
narrative.
arrogance in a
Yes,
sense,
and,
right?
and
Yeah.
yeah, spiritual arrogance, arrogance, and so like those people that we thought one time that have been the spiritual leaders, transformational teachers, are the ones that are
They're buying the fear narrative.
they're sitting on their laurels. They're just buying the narrative and not doing anything and speaking up. But the people who are speaking up are all the people who were never teachers, never intended to be teachers, never intended to be leaders, but they are the new leaders. And so it's like, that's the big thing is, you know, in our, when we studied enlightenment, right, it was the focus was detachment. The way to awakening was detachment, but we were really focused on it from a like a material kind of detachment kind of thing.
Or being detached from our because as we're processing our stories, right? So that's learning how to be detached from our childhood experiences. You process them and then you work through them, and then you're no longer emotionally attached to the suffering that we experience as kids. So there's part of that, like it's a spiritual detachment, but this is taking detachment to a whole nother level.
Yeah, it's like the true kind of awakening, you know, as we're kind of naturally seeing ourselves kind of now moving away from people that we've been really close to, be it our family members, be it some of our friends, be it, you know, people who've been in our work communities, right? We're seeing ourselves kind of separating from them, and if we try to hold on to them, you know,
they'll hold us back.
They'll hold us back, and we won't.
So this is really about, like we've said before, this is about not being attached to what we think somebody else's path needs to be. Yeah. Because the only path we really know is ours. Yeah. And really about learning to trust our path. Yeah. And do the very best we can to help guide the way. Yeah. But we have no attachments, and it's hard. I mean, especially if these are people that we love. There are mothers, brothers, sisters, spouses, kids. Yeah. And to just know that we have to be the light being that we are. Yeah. And be the loving being that we are, and not try to drag them with us, right?
Plant the seeds and let go, right? Plant the seeds and let go.
And that if that's where their higher self is, that's where their soul wants to go, that they will wake up and make that transition, and just know that not everybody's going to be ready to make that transition into this new world that we're creating, and that everybody will wake up in their own time, and to be okay with that. Yeah. And to no longer hold ourselves back with wishful thinking of who we think needs to come with us. Yeah. Yeah.
And be okay that the people that you're going to be moving forward with are going to be completely different people than the ones you've got this far with. You know?
And we can hope, and we can still continue to love them, and hope that they wake up, and eventually everybody will.
In their own
time, and if they
don't, they'll go on their own path.
If they don't, then they'll transition out and then come back as somebody entirely new.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I was getting this message from Spirit a year ago. Mm-hmm. That we were going to be going on a journey, and that we needed to drop all the bags that we couldn't take with us. And I was literally seeing, like, going through your suitcases and saying, okay, this I can take with me, this person I can take with me, this person I can't, and this junk all needs to go out to the curb, and the garbage guy's going to take it. What do I really want to take with me on this journey? And that we had to be willing to let go of everything that we couldn't take with us on this journey. And so a lot of people started purging even back then. And I just, like you probably, what else do I need to let go of? What else do I need to let go of? I'm constantly asking my guidance, what else do I need to let go of? Yeah. And part of that is the detachment, was letting go of my kids' paths. And that was probably the hardest one for me. Yeah. I mean, letting go of my husband. Yeah. That was really hard. Yeah. Letting go of my kids' paths is much harder. Yeah. And at the same time, just having to trust that I can't show them the way if I'm holding myself back.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. We have to be example. So, we have to be the example of the change we want to see in the world. you know,
Yeah.
even as much how scary it is and how much rejection we might get. So a lot of people will
Yeah.
hold people back. I can tell you I have a whole group of friends that are like in the transformational spiritual industry that have this awareness that we're sharing, but they are afraid to speak up because they're getting attacked by the others, and they're afraid to lose their approval in the industry, and their place and role in it by speaking up. And I feel like this is all our eternal journey to, you know, like not need the approval of others outside of ourselves and only get that approval from self and source.
Yeah.
That's another part of the whole great awakening.
Yeah, and that's been hard because we have our spiritual community, and a lot of people in our spiritual community are attacking other people in the spiritual community, and and instead of trying to understand, it's just they just go on attack, and we know that's because that's what's being played. That's what they're being played with. They have no idea they're being played with that.
And that's part of the human programming, is getting that love and approval outside of yourself.
Yeah.
And so it's a big thing to break. But that shows true awakening when you can no longer get your love and approval outside of yourself, and you get it from within and source.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what we're planning on now, and what we've talked about a little bit, maybe we close out with this, is the meditation that we've been talking about, because we know that anytime you're in against something, that what you focus on, you create more of. So we're changing the focus. So it's one thing to recognize all of the darkness and all the holy shit storm that's breaking loose, the holy shift storm, that is taking place, which is the apocalypse. There's a misunderstanding of what the word apocalypse even means. It means the great unveiling of all things once hidden. That's actually what it means.
Or revelations.
We're actually in it right now. So people have been, I always have nightmares about the apocalypse, because that's what I thought as a super religious kid, what I thought it was. And now I get, it's about information, really.
It's about revelation.
It's about revelation. Everything coming to the surface so we can solve it.
Yeah.
And but as long as we focus on just the darkness, that's what's going to continue. So we need to focus on the solutions.
Exactly.
And I got this the other day, meditating for what we want. When it's the opposite of meditation is curse. So a lot of people are like cursing the president and cursing the whatever, and that's the opposite of meditation.
Yeah.
And so we're creating a meditation to create the world that we want.
Yes.
Instead of focusing on what we don't want. So many people are just laser focused on what we don't want, and all we're going to do is keep creating that if we focus on that.
Exactly. So this meditation is going to be happening before the election. It's going to be happening at the end of October, and we are going to collectively co-create a peaceful election process. We're going to see that happening peacefully, and we're also going to co-create the better reality for all that we want to see after the election. And it's going to be very neutral. It's not going to be party focused at all. It's going to just be really focused that this is going to be a peaceful election process, and that after the election we're going to be leading into a better reality for the whole world, like a golden age reality in which we know that's the direction that the universe is going.
And we'll put division behind us, and harmony and unity will once again ensue, like we were feeling happening in 2012.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we invite you to join us in that. Soon we'll be actually putting together posts that ask you for your input on what that better reality looks like. So this is going to be a co-creation thing. So before we actually get into the meditation, you'll give us your input of, what this better reality looks like, minus any kind of, parties. We're not going to use party words. We're just going to see how it will be. the
Because
end result.
it's really not about politics.
Right. No,
This
that
really
was a
isn't about
man-made
politics.
construction.
This is about co-creating the world we want to create.
From our divine sovereignty, our divine eternal power, and taking back the power to co-create a reality instead of trusting it to other people, of creating the reality they want that's only in their interest and not for the whole.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
So super excited to be doing that.
Yes.
We'll keep you posted on what that looks like when we're going to be launching that. If you have any questions, if you have comments about what you want to see be a part of this, you're welcome to leave your comments below.
Yep.
And Brandy and I will be
join us. And you'll find part of that discussion on my Facebook page called Jump to a Better Life. Jump to a Better Life. You'll find this discussion where we'll be co-creating what that vision will look like and when the meditation is and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coordinating that. We've talked about doing meditations together before. This is the first time we're actually doing it.
Yeah.
So please leave your comments below, and the Jump to a Better Life, can they leave ideas there of what they want to be in the, in the meditation?
I'll be putting a post up. I'll pin it to the top, so you'll find it right there at the top of Jump to a Better Life, or you'll find it Brandy Faith Welld too. It'll go to that page, Jump to a Better Life.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Yeah. Well, thank you all. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation. This is the first one. I have so many great guests for you. I have been culminating a lot of friends over the years, and really some of the most beautiful, spiritual, brilliant people, and who are also informed as well. So we're going to bridge, I have a thing called Bridging the Divide, and it's bridging the divide of Lightworkers, Q, and the Patriots. Do you see that up there on my vision board?
Yes, I do.
So the whole point of this TV show is to bridge the divide.
Awesome. And this meditation is going to be called Unite the Light.
Yay!
It's time for the light to unite.
It is time for the light to unite.
Yes.
So with that, don't forget to comment, like, and share if you feel inspired by this conversation, and look forward to sharing more with you in the near future. Mwah.